Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Christine Earthart.
And I'm Brett Earthart.
And we are founders of the Center for Thriving Relationships. And we are so grateful, excited, and honored to have you here and to get to welcome you to Mastering Communication, 10 essential tips for relationship success.
It's been our honor and privilege in this past decade plus to work with thousands of clients and training coaches all over the world to work with clients. And the number one reason why people say they're coming in for support with our services is because of communication. And we change communication and we change everything.
It's true. So we're so glad you are here and you are in the right place. If some of these things are familiar, and rest assured, these things are so common, almost inevitable when we enter into relationship with someone. Perhaps you find that you are having less of a dialogue where you're both really hearing each other. Instead, it's become these two monologues. And the two monologues, what tends to happen is you're both longing to feel heard, but neither of you do. And so you keep turning up the volume louder and louder. So perhaps you truly get louder in your tone, maybe harsher in your words, more dramatic. Maybe you talk excessively because you feel like they're just not getting it. Or you go in the other direction and you start to shut down, you withdraw, you check out in some ways. All of these are kind of ways that we get louder because we just don't feel heard.
Communication has so many of our important needs involved, right? It's how we feel understood, how, we feel connected, how we feel valued. And when we don't get those important needs met in our interactions, then it's like we're going to start accruing resentment, right? We're going to start feeling frustrated. We're going to start really feeling hurt. And then, those emotions often start coming out sideways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because repair is so important and communication is a key part of that. So a lot of times we enter into, especially the more delicate conversations that are more emotionally charged, because something is so deeply precious and important to us. And instead of feeling on the other side of the conversation that, things are resolved, you get me, we have this new win-win solution, I feel so understood and seen, we feel the opposite. We feel even worse afterwards. And so, those things just pile up over time and can even create what's called an invisible divorce, where you used to be so connected. Now maybe you're sleeping side by side and yet you feel miles apart. So other common indications that your communication perhaps needs a bit of a tune-up is if there's a lot of blame, criticism, defensiveness, maybe the things that instead of them being requests or wishes or dreams, they're coming across as demands or as nagging.
Yeah, whenever we come out of communicating with our beloved and we feel worse afterwards, then that's a sign that, there's room for growth, that there's growth kind of really wanting to happen. Because even when we have difficult conversations with difficult subjects, we tend to feel better after we have those conversations, right? Kind of feels like a relief. And, feels like if we're doing it right, there's more camaraderie. Just in, maybe in simplest terms, right? It's like our communication is a bit dysfunctional or unhealthy if we're feeling worse afterwards.
Yes, for sure. That's a great sign. And maybe you're just craving more emotional intimacy. So perhaps you're one of the partners in a couple and you just wish your partner would share their feelings more or would communicate and engage with you more fully. That's really common. And what we'll share, we will absolutely go over a longing for that because it is so paramount in learning how to communicate and navigate life, because chances are you're managing a lot in your life. You have different needs, different wishes, preferences, personalities. You come into the relationship with different raw spots and parts from your past. So we need to learn how to navigate these in a skillful way. So other things that you might discover is that you are just kind of working against each other, that you keep having the same conversation over and over and over. So the research shows that a couple will actually have the same conversation for over 40 years unless they learn a different way to have that conversation. So we're going to talk more about that. So maybe you can just kind of press the repeat button and you're back in it again without any sort of resolution.
Yeah. And that's, again, a clear sign we're kind of working like adversaries, and we're going to teach you how to be allies and teammates with communication and in every part of your loving relationship with each other.
You got it. So yes, if any of these things resonate with you, we're just sending a whole lot of love and compassion. And there is abundant, abundant hope, rest assured. So yeah, if you would love to experience being teammates and best friends, being back on the same page, feeling like you talk the same language, that you have these conversations, and rather than feeling frustrated, discouraged, exasperated, instead you feel hopeful and renewed and connected, and sharing something with your partners like, oh, I'm just so glad I shared that with you because I feel relieved, and all the good things.
Yeah, wouldn't it just be dreamy if we knew that we were safe to say anything to our beloved? That, I could really just kind of share whatever's on my heart and know that I'm going to give a positive response. And of course, if I, expect that of my partner, then I want to make sure that I am living that and giving them that very same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your communication, it's full of healing, it's full of repair, because the aim of a thriving relationship is not to never have conflict. That would be an impossibility. The aim is that we know how to quickly and easily repair, and communication is an essential part of that. So there's safety, there's trust, there's ease and flow and joy in your relationship. So we enter into partnership for life to be easier and to enjoy this incredible gift of life more fully. And unfortunately, without the roadmap, what tends to happen is that life feels more challenging. Things feel more stressful, and we feel the weight of things. Like life is already stressful. And then our relationship, when that also becomes a source of stress, it bleeds into every other area of our lives.
In some ways, we're experiencing this kind of existential isolation in this lifetime. It's like, each of us is limited by our mind, right? It's like, and one could even say kind of trapped in our own mind or experience. And, what we've found is that, a loving relationship, a thriving relationship is really kind of a spiritual journey to being able to experience something beyond that kind of existential angst of isolation. And, for really doing things right, it's like we really get to experience another, right? And like when we can, have this like beautiful, loving, vulnerable, safe, trusting, on and on relationship with someone else, it almost like is like we're touching into this like greater consciousness, greater awareness. And it's such a beautiful experience, and we want everybody to have that.
Yes, that is our deep wish for you, is from spending this time together. We know your time is so valuable, and we want to make the absolute most of it, that you can learn how to have new conversations where you feel deeply seen, heard, supported, loved, understood, and get to experience what we're all longing for, is that way of being together, that we get to create and experience so much more beauty and goodness and love than we ever could on our own.
And it takes communication, just such the core part of that, right?
For sure. And relationship skills, they are something that must be learned. So we have had the great privilege of supporting couples over the past, well over a decade, and some of the kindest, most intelligent, successful people we know. And relationships are uniquely humbling because they bring to the surface everything. There's no place for anything to hide. So any of our unconscious patterns, any of our fears, any of our wounding from our childhood or past relationships, anything that ultimately is actually holding us back individually, but we might not even realize it, it gets highlighted and magnified in the context of partnership. And we just don't learn anywhere how to have thriving relationships. Usually when we ask people like, well, who are some examples you have of a thriving relationship? They're like, I'm not entirely sure that we have any, or maybe a handful at best. So we don't learn anywhere how to have a great relationship. There aren't a whole lot of role models. So you can be such an amazing, extraordinary person, and still we need to learn the roadmap, because it's different. When Brett and I got together, we both had done lots of personal growth. We were longtime meditators, read lots of books, went to lots of workshops and trainings and retreats. And never did I think that relationships would be like one of the more challenging things in life. But it doesn't discriminate. We find that pretty much everyone, as long as you are committed to entering into a deeply intimate partnership with someone, it is going to be the greatest catalyst for growth. And the wonderful news is that it can be learned. It is a unique skill set that most people don't have, but anybody can become empowered with it.
Yeah, our expectations, our desires for what we get out of our romantic relationship today is just like bounds higher than it's ever been in history. And because of that, we can actually experience like heights of of ecstasy, of connection and relationships that probably have never been possible before. But there is, kind of a cost to that, which is we have to invest much more in relationships, and developing these relationship skills is kind of one of those areas that we have to do, like really invest heavy in, because like what came naturally, to us, just like to be able to have a functional relationship in the past, like that's just not good enough anymore. Again, our expectations of relationship are just higher than that. And that's, mostly a good thing. But it really necessitates that, it's like, we need to actually be at a masterful level with our relationship skills, like never before. And that takes intention, that takes like really challenging ourselves to develop in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most people would say, if you were to ask them, like, what's the most important part of your life? Most people would say their partnership, their family, their loved ones. It's about relationships. It's what this life journey is about for so many of us. And yet we've studied all these other things. If you just think of all the different things you've studied in your life that you've went to school for, trainings for, it's like most of us are overdue for actually investing in training around the thing that's so important to us. So you are incredible for being here, and we are celebrating you fully. And if we haven't had the joy of meeting you before, it is so wonderful to get to connect right now. And we've been together over 20 years now, and we are in the marriage truly of our dreams, and it has been consciously co-created. When we first got together, like many love stories, we just were giving each other our best. It was quite magical and mystical. It was sort of like a homecoming. Fast forward a few years though, and suddenly we own a home together. We are parenting our young son, and we're discovering that we have differences in how we parent and how clean we like the house and how we navigate finances. And, my nickname growing up was Toodaloo, because I just kind of went with the flow. I always saw myself as really easygoing, and I had no idea. All of a sudden I'm in this relationship and I'm like, I've got opinions about things Brett says and does. And we both found that like the relationship, suddenly we were giving each other more of our worst and parts of ourselves we didn't even know existed. And so we really got to that place that we realized, like, goodness, those things that we fell in love with, suddenly we're like kind of focusing on the flip side of that. And we wondered if we were just too incompatible, that our relationship served a purpose. Even though we had lots of good moments, it wasn't like what we ultimately wanted. We wanted more in relationship, more ease and joy and flow and fulfillment. And so on a night that we'll never forget, we really got to this crossroads moment, and we realized that we had three options. We could either kind of bless each other on our separate paths. We could keep doing what we had always been doing. And we kind of looked ahead and imagined that in 5 years, we'd probably be sitting having a similar conversation, because we'd been doing it through trial and error. And what so often happens in relationships is we do actually innocently, but we do the opposite of what works. And when that doesn't work, we do that even more, hoping that it'll work. And of course, it works even less. Or a third option was to dive in and learn everything we possibly could about relationships, because we realized we'd done lots of personal growth, but that wasn't the area that we'd really devoted ourselves yet. And so that night we ordered this gigantic stack of books. And at the time it was DVDs and CDs and these different courses. And we devoted every Friday night of our lives was conscious date night. And we were committed to learning and growing. We started attending retreats and trainings all over the country, and our relationship utterly transformed beyond anything we could have imagined. It was like turning the lights on, and suddenly we felt seen and understood, and possibilities and solutions opened up where we saw dead ends before.
Yeah, those early years of relationship, it was like so easy to feel blissed out. And and then at some point, love is not enough. Like love can, really propel us into wonderful places. It makes things easier, right? But there's a point at which it isn't enough, and it takes like other parts of our being to really make relationships work. And like for us, it's like getting clear on like what parts of us that needed to grow in order to have that relationship that that we're going to be happy with, right? And that without that we're going to be dissatisfied with. And it's like the best investment that we can make. Our romantic relationship is really, the biggest factor of our happiness on average. Maybe not for everybody, but for most of us, on average, it's really the thing that defines our happiness more than anything else. And so it is the perfect place to be all in. just to know that's like, oh, like, hey, my growth right now, kind of how I'm developing in my ability to love this person and, to be a healthy person that can show up to this relationship. What I'm doing now is going to affect us next year and 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Like our biology in those first couple of years really helps us to feel blissed out. But then it's like, what are you doing today to make sure that you're going to still be blissed out with each other, in years to come. And it does take effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and we didn't expect that we were going to be opening the Center for Thriving Relationships. It really was. We experienced our own transformation and we realized that relationships are the area of life where so many people, so many well-intentioned people are unnecessarily struggling and suffering. And so we both have been working with individuals as, therapists, licensed psychotherapists and coach and healer. And we found that relationships are just like these human growing machines. And so, now it's just we're just in awe of the people that we get to support. And, so often people call the Center for Thriving Relationships in really difficult moments. And wherever you are right now, if you're in a good relationship and you just want to keep growing your relationship superpowers, if you want to be able to support others, that you see others miscommunicating and you want to find some way that you can support them, or if you're in a really difficult moment, we just want to assure you, really, truly, like those difficult moments can be the ones that wake us up and really inspire us to take action to make things better than ever before. All right. So, yes, the great news. We've got good news for you.
And that's when we improve our communication. We often find that lots of our challenges start to disappear. It's like, well, it might feel overwhelming. That's like we have, kind of challenges that just run from A to Z. It's like they're just like too numerous to count. And then, we just kind of develop these relationship skills and our communication becomes so much better. And then it's like, oh, like, what were those problems that we had? Like, it just like feels so much easier now.
Yeah, for sure. And sitting with so many couples in some of their most intimate, vulnerable moments, cannot count the number of times that people will say, oh my gosh, I've been trying to tell you that for 20 years. And I feel like you just really got it for the first time. Or someone sharing, that's what you've been trying to say all these years. I've never heard you talk about it like that before. So it's really learning how to speak in a way that makes it easier for people to hear us. And it's learning how to listen in a way that allows people to feel safe, to want to come closer, to share more openly with us. It's like once people feel heard, we can feel like we're at a standstill and suddenly like the issue itself just it just is transformed so often. Of course, there's like little tweaks that we need to do to find win-win solutions, and the power of being heard and understanding each other is not to be underestimated. So we're about to dive into those 10 tips. But before we begin, we want to share something really, really important.
Yeah. So before we begin, let's just make sure that we are taking personal responsibility for everything. Taking personal responsibility is really our path to freedom. That's we have to start there for things to be effective. For anything that we're going to talk about today, for it to work, we got to start from the place of personal responsibility. And so we want to encourage you just to do a check-in right now and to make sure that that you are making a powerful commitment to your relationship, that you are all in, because for things to get better, we need to be all in, right? Like, kind of half-hearted, lukewarm approaches, like don't work in love.
Yeah, relationships really are a series of commitments. It's committing not just on our wedding day or the day we decide to be in a committed relationship. It's committing over and over again and again and again, day after day after day, to who we want to be, how we want to show up for our partner, what we want to create, what we want to experience. And so this is a brand new, beautiful moment that has never been here before. And we just invite you to make a powerful commitment to doing whatever it takes to get your relationship back in flow, back in a spirit of connection and togetherness, to make a commitment to learning how to communicate in a way that allows everything to improve. So yes, take 100% responsibility. And one of the questions that we invite people to ask is to look at, how am I creating this? So when people come to our office, there's a secret little wish in their hearts, which we completely understand, is they're like, finally, there's going to be somebody else that points out to my partner everything I've been trying to tell them about what they've been doing wrong. If they would just change, we'd be so much happier. So that's probably true if your partner did just like go along with whatever your magic wand would wish of them, things probably would be easier. And that's not where transformation happens. Like that's not where our greatest leverage for wisdom occurs. And so we invite you just to start asking the question like, how am I creating this? Like, how am I communicating in a way that's making it more challenging to hear me? I wonder how I could communicate differently that would bring us closer together, that would help us, get more on the same page again. So how am I creating this? And then what does the relationship need from me in order to thrive or to improve or to strengthen or grow or be renewed or to feel the spark reunited, whatever it is for you.
Yeah. And when communication is challenging, we are asking ourselves like, oh, what am I doing, right? That makes our communication hard. Like if I feel unheard, like I'm asking myself, what am I doing to make it hard for Christine to hear me? Like maybe I'm being bitey, maybe I'm being blamey, maybe I'm, kind of expecting, things from her that are kind of inappropriate or, that, kind of go, things that I should be fulfilling for myself. There's so many kind of different ways we can apply this. We're really, shining a spotlight on ourselves first before we ever even start looking, at what they might be doing wrong.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So it is time for us to dive in to these 10 keys. Let's start with the first one. All right. Tip number 1 is to position yourself as allies, that you're really on the same team. So here, for those of you that are watching this, here's kind of the visual that we share with clients. So often when we're approaching something, maybe you want different things, you have different opinions about things, what you want, what your partner needs, they feel like they're in opposition, really, really common. And so what we want to do is rather than standing on either side of the challenge, just imagine people standing on either side of a challenge and the challenge is in the middle of you. You're like, no, I want to do it my way.
My way.
My way.
My way.
I want you to hear me.
I want you to hear me.
No, that's wrong. My way is right.
You need to hear me first, and then I'll hear you.
Right. So like that and all the many variations of it are occurring. Instead, we invite you just to even just energetically, emotionally, imagine that you're standing side by side. Nobody has to be wrong. There is infinite space in a relationship for everyone's experience without having to make anything wrong. So all of your needs, all of your feelings, we want to let them be welcome and not make anything wrong. And then we get to stand side by side looking at all of this. Nobody is wrong. And let's just get curious and creative and collaborative and resourceful together as teammates to see like, okay, you want that and I want this, that all makes sense. Or you see it this way, I see it this way. Okay, it all makes sense because we all make sense if we are willing to get out of our own head and drop into the heart of another, our beloved and otherwise. We get to see like, oh, okay, that does make sense. And then making sense doesn't mean that you don't make sense. You both make sense. And so we're just standing side by side as allies and teammates, solutions can open up. And so it's rather than taking it so personally and making it about each other, look at the thing that you want to have a breakthrough around or that isn't working optimally, and see if you can kind of work together. And this is just the framing that we want to really hold when we're going through something. And we've sprinkled in some prompts here along the way to help with that.
Yeah. It's like having your challenge in front of both of you. And it's like, oh, shoulder to shoulder, right? It's like, oh, we got a challenge here.
We got a challenge.
Yeah, let's like take it on together.
Let's do it.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, we just get to get curious. Like,
I
wonder how we can like make this really work for both of us.
Yeah.
Good thing we have pillows for prompts. So yeah, some examples of prompts you could share. Of course, it is not limited to these, but just to give you an idea is like, I'm in this with you and we're going to figure this out together. We're going to find a solution to this. We've got this. Another one is just saying we are allies and teammates in this, like we're going to figure it out. It's like a spirit of we and togetherness that we want to bring to it.
And that's been an especially helpful one for us over the years. There was, kind of that time a couple of years into our relationship where it's like, oh, like we're kind of acting like adversaries to each other. Did not feel good. And, one of the things that we figured out is kind of like our mantra that helped us to bring consciousness to in these moments when we weren't acting like allies and teammates, and we would just like literally say those words. We would just say to each other when either one of us started to feel that like we're allies and teammates, and then it was like ding, is that intention just brought us right back to our good place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I invite you just to approach things in this way. So if your partner brings up something and your initial response is maybe like, to respond with defensiveness or blame or criticism or making wrong or analyzing or jumping in to say your own feelings about it instead of hearing them, just like, okay, that makes sense. All right, we're going to figure this out together. Like, here's how I see it. And it all makes sense. It's all valid. Let's find a way to really figure this out together. So in your own words, we find this to be so important when it comes to communication and just really approaching all things in relationships. But you can feel it when we're communicating in a way that we're really trying to be together in it.
Tip number 2, see the needs and longings underneath. We have this saying, wonder and look under. Like whenever, there's kind of behavior or emotions happening that, just don't feel right, don't feel good. We always want to start off looking underneath those emotions for what's really going on, right? Because when, say one of us is feeling frustrated, like underneath that is, probably a longing for connection, right? A need for connection or a need to be understood. Right. There's some important, beautiful need that's underneath, those kind of problematic, behaviors or emotions. And we don't want to get distracted by what's on the surface. We want to go underneath and get to, the need that's really there. And this picture on this slide, I think is just like so powerful. It's truly one of my favorite images ever, because it really, shows us it's like what, that difference of who we are on the surface, who we are on the outside versus who we are on the inside, right? So, when we're kind of frustrated or hopeless, that's what we are on the outside, and then, but on the inside, right, there are these, these vulnerable parts of us that just want love and connection with, our beloved. So just that image just says it all.
It does. Yeah, that's a art installation from Burning Man, and it is such a deeply moving one. We didn't see this as somebody else's image. We weren't there to see it in real life, but so grateful for the artist. Yeah, I love human needs psychology. I find it just to be an exquisitely compassionate way to understanding humanity, that we all have these needs. Our needs are so beautiful. They are so valid. And everything we're doing is just a strategy to get our needs met. Sometimes we choose healthy strategies, which is great. Other times we don't choose the healthiest strategies. And we just want to have so much grace for ourselves and one another as we are lifelong students here at Earth School, just trying to find our way and learning what works and what doesn't work. And so often we learn what works by first figuring out what doesn't work. And so whenever you see your partner, doing some behavior or saying something that maybe is a little more challenging to receive, realize that underneath it, there's actually just a deep longing there. There's something that is so important to them that they deeply value that isn't being met. And we're not suggesting that you are the one who is responsible for meeting all of those needs. Certainly, we want to highly prioritize and value each other's needs. And we also want to be self-sourcing our needs and finding ways to meet those needs in our own lives. It's both. The most important thing here is to realize that there are needs underneath the surface. Whenever having a communication when things are flowing really well tends to happen rather naturally. And so still these tips are going to help for all of that. And we realize that when you're probably going to need some extra communication skills is when there are things that are a little bit more emotionally charged, a little more tender. And that's usually because they're even more important to us, because there are really important needs there that aren't feeling met and that we're longing to have met. And so yeah, this expression that we came up with, wonder and look under, is one that we value so dearly. And I think one of the greatest gifts and honors of getting to do this work with people is that I have fallen so in love with humanity, because those things that we see on the surface, that it's so easy to judge in other people, that we just see as the most unattractive or repelling kind of qualities or features in them. Oh my goodness, when we can just like wonder and look under and hear the tenderness underneath it, it all makes so much sense. And yeah, it's like they're just crying out in relationships. We mentioned that we can so often do the opposite of what works. And the need for connection is perhaps the highest need that we have in relationships in all the forms it takes. And unfortunately, we so often in our longing for connection. So say, for example, you're longing for your partner to connect with you more and they just seem distracted. And so we blame and criticize them for being so distracted, maybe on their phone a lot, which then does not inspire them to want to come closer. So we have a need for connection. The strategy we're using is criticizing our partner for whatever they're doing that's taking them away from us. Shucks, that doesn't work so well. So we just need a new way of communicating about it.
Yeah, those dysfunctional things, right, those are very related to our attachment styles. I wish we had time to go into that. That is one of the most profound kind of concepts to go into. But we do that with our clients and our coach certification. We make sure that people are experts on that. But yeah, so we just so often do the ineffective thing when we long for connection. And isn't that tragic? And we want to make sure that you're kind of really becoming ever more conscious of this so that you don't make that mistake.
Yeah, for sure. So there you could Google human needs and you'll get a whole list of human needs. We put just a sprinkling of them here because I would recommend to anybody that really wants to become well-versed in all things communication to really develop a vocabulary around needs, because we're going to talk about empathy here in a moment. But part of empathy is being able to see beyond the words that someone is saying into the more vulnerable feelings and the longings, the values, the needs. Those are kind of synonymous underneath it. Like, oh, I know you're just really feeling frustrated right now because you're just longing for consideration around this. Or I know you're feeling just kind of stagnant right now because you value growth and self-expression so much. So here are some of the needs. We're just going to read these off in case you are just listening. So we've got safety, trust, ease, integrity, forgiveness, clarity, communication, freedom.
Love, peace, organization, creativity, fun, meaning, togetherness.
Intimacy, touch, appreciation, connection, understanding, consistency, contribution.
Empathy, consideration, growth, self-expression, security, nurturing, adventure.
Yes.
Those are all valid, beautiful needs.
They sure are. So we don't want to make any of them wrong. We just want to find creative ways, win-win ways for us to get all of our needs met in a relationship. The aim of having a thriving relationship is not that you quiet your needs or that anybody's needs are wrong. We just need to find ways to meet them that really honor everyone involved and really work long-term for both of you, that are sustainable. So this also comes to when you're sharing about something with your beloved, is to identify what are the needs that you're longing for? What are the values? So this is both in how we hear one another as well as in how we share with one another. All right, so look for the underlying needs. And connected to this, tip number 3 is to address the underlying fears. We want to comfort what feels threatened. So Brett mentioned attachment theory, which is one of our great passions, and so excited that it's kind of a buzzword in the world of relationships these days, and for such good reason. So it is connected to communication. We'll certainly touch on it. And yes, we could spend the next 10 hours easily, passionately, enthusiastically talking with you about attachment. But it's connected to this, is to realize that our romantic relationship tends to impact us more than anything else in our lives. And so if you ever have the experience of, gosh, my partner, they're so kind to everyone else, and then I get their worst, or maybe you have that experience, I don't even like who I've become anymore. I thought I was this really easygoing person, really generous person, really fun person, all these qualities that you really treasure about yourself. And when you find that you're giving your partner maybe the opposite of it, that can be a really painful experience, both receiving that and giving that. And we just want to normalize that. One of the reasons that is because here is somebody else who impacts us so much. And so we perceive them as a threat to whether or not our own needs get met. For example, if your friend came to you and they said, you know what, I just am going to quit my job and travel the world, there's a good chance you'd be like, do it. That sounds amazing. Oh my gosh, you only live once. What an adventure. Tell me more. Where do you think you're going to go? You just get in there with him and it'd be so much easier naturally just to feel excitement and ease and joy around it. if your partner comes home from work and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to quit my job. I think we should just take off and travel the world. You might all of a sudden have all these opinions, all these fears that come up. Like, what about our money? And what about our dogs? And what about our house? And what about all these things, right? And so because needs feel threatened, maybe your need for security, for consideration in it, for safety, certainty, stability, so many things get stirred up. And when that happens, and we have a fear response, we tend to go into fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn, one of our fear responses. And so, yeah, first I'll let Brett dive in here. I just want to normalize that the reason this happens is because we tend to regress, in our relationships into our fear responses, and we become way more primitive when that happens. We are not seeing the big picture and having empathy more naturally in those moments. We tend to have very black and white thinking. We have tunnel vision. We think that what's happening in this moment reflects the totality of our life. So we tend to react really disproportionately when we're scared. And even though you might not actually consciously identify that you're scared in that moment, you might just feel annoyed or frustrated or discouraged or disappointed. Chances are, if you dig a little bit deeper, there's something you actually feel scared of because some need feels threatened.
Yeah. So when your beloved has a big response, right? When there's big emotions there, you can feel honored that that's happening because you're so important to them, right? It's like you're such the foundational part of their life, right? That you evoke big emotions in them. And so it's like, oh, thank you. Thank you for being so angry at me. Thank you for being so frustrated at me. Yeah, and I'm being a little tongue in cheek here, but really, I mean, I do truly mean that. Yeah, and so let's just acknowledge it's like, oh, hey, we're really important to each other, and when a fear comes up, it's like we want to be both of us, kind of those allies and teammates, kind of to address the fear that one of us is feeling, one or both of us. And so, we want to like be reassuring in those situations, right? We want to assure them it's like, oh, like, hey, yeah, I do love you. You are important to me. Your needs are important to me. You are a priority to me.
Yeah. So when it comes to both in sharing something as well as in receiving something. So in sharing something, we just invite you to actually use the words, I'm scared, rather than just making your partner wrong or criticizing or blaming or shutting down or whatever your default go-to thing is, or just getting defensive in the various ways that appears, is sharing like, gosh, I'm just scared. And whatever you're scared of, I'm scared that I don't really matter to you, or I'm scared that, this thing is going to fall apart or whatever, but just to get as vulnerable as you can, because vulnerability definitely is what helps provoke more empathy in us. Whereas if someone's just in their head kind of making it wrong, then we double down on our own opinions about why our idea is valid and right. And that's what happens. That's what we really want to avoid here, is both of you just kind of double downing on however you perceive things. Again, this is the two monologues rather than a dialogue. And when we're in the two monologues, we tend to think that we are so much further apart than we actually are. So to get more vulnerable, and here is the key, and this is so connected to attachment, is to know what your response is. So if you are someone who goes into fight, your response, even though to you are still a caring person, you probably just care so deeply about this and you want to go into action mode, and it might come across as being kind of intense, maybe aggressive, maybe dominating, and critical, blaming, all that kind of stuff. And so what can happen to your partner is they no longer feel safe to stay connected to you. And so you might notice that they start to get quiet, or they just leave the room, they check out, they don't respond to your message. And ultimately it's because they don't feel safe in that moment. If your response is to go more into freeze or flight mode, what your partner needs more than anything is actually the opposite of what you're doing. They need to feel like you are engaged with them. So you want to lean in, you want to communicate, you want to assure, you want to be responsive, because they're threat detectors looking for, am I in this alone? Are you with me in this?
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you that want to avoid the difficult discussions, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. You leave the room, when your partner gets upset, you stonewall, you give the silent treatment, right? If you're that kind of withdrawing, type of person, when things get hard, yeah, you want to lean into your beloved, because that's what will help them to calm down, right? That's what will show them that's like, I'm in this, I'm with you, we're in this together.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, the person who's withdrawing is usually longing for some positive energy to feel like they can succeed, that they're enough. So they're wanting appreciation. So the moment you feel your partner start to drift, appreciate that, and they'll want to kind of appreciate that or offer them affection, whatever. Get to know them. It is a one of a kind of art of learning to love each unique person. And there's probably something for them to feel like they're enough, that they're appreciated, that they're valued, and they'll want to come closer, that it's safe to come closer. And then again, if you're the person that tends to, if your partner tends to get more agitated, just instead of checking out, which is going to be your natural response, really lean in and engage and empathize and validate and all those things. So important, because we precious humans just get scared sometimes. And when we're scared, the things we do, our default might be the opposite of what works. And so again, but this can be learned, and this is like the off ramp. All right. Tip number 4, and these are all connected and building on each other. So offer validation and empathy before feedback. So we like to think that first, being present with someone else. And all of these things extend beyond our romantic relationships. So as soon as, whether it's your child, maybe they're really upset because something just broke. Instead of being like, it's okay, you have 20 more toys in your room. We want to pause and be like, oh, that's such a bummer. I know you loved that toy. That's so sad. Be with them in it. And then once they feel deeply heard, then we can move on to like, oh, should we go look in your room for some other toy? So using that example, because sometimes it's easier to do maybe something that feels a little more neutral, is our partner when they share something with us. Maybe your partner comes home, from work, and they're like, oh, I just got in trouble at work today because I've been coming in late. And if your partner's like, yeah, well, I've been telling you, if you would just set your alarm earlier, and, you give them this whole litany of things that they could have done, that is not going to be connecting. Instead, like, oh, I bet that was such a scary or I bet that was such a hard conversation. Embarrassing. Yeah. Right. You're just kind of making guesses, and just be with them in it. They don't need your feedback right then. But then we can always ask, like, oh, would it be helpful to like get some feedback around this? So those are things not involving it coming towards you, but the same as when it comes towards you, when your partner offers you some sort of feedback, rather than getting defensive or shooting it down or avoiding it, or just going quiet, like first pause to really be with them in it. Because when we feel like somebody's with us in it, it actually, something happens physiologically. So if you were just to imagine, some of you will relate to this more than others, certainly something I can relate to. So imagine you're in the woods and it's getting late, it's getting dark, and you are hiking with a friend and you just don't even care. You're like, oh, you just don't even hear things, right? Imagine if you were on that same hike on your own. You'd probably hear like, oh my gosh, that was a twig. Was that somebody? Was that an animal? Like, we're hearing all the sounds. Maybe you're home alone or you're in some new place. If somebody's with us, we don't even notice the things, or much less so. And even if that friend couldn't defend us whatsoever, should there actually be a life-threatening circumstance, physiologically, it signals to us when we are alone, world just feels so much scarier. When somebody is with us in it, our fear kind of alarm bells just turn off. So it's extraordinary. And this happens on a nervous system, physiological level, and empathy and validation gives this to everyone. And so just signaling to somebody with your words, actually articulating it. So just feeling empathy and validation is not enough. People need to hear it. So letting them know, like, I see you, I hear you, that makes sense. I'm with you in this. Oh gosh, that, like, including feelings and needs. So it seems like that was really hard. That was really discouraging, frustrating, exciting. So be with them in their joys and their challenges. Yeah.
We communicate with each other on such a profound level. so much of our communication is nonverbal. And, so it's like we have, like countless, kind of facial muscles, and all the muscles in our body create a nonverbal communication that's extremely complex. And when we give each other empathy, right? It's like that that aligns our body in a similar emotion. And then we experience this like really, very enjoyable, very comforting connection because it's like our bodies are speaking the same language. We do feel this oneness when we're empathizing, and it's very, very comforting, very nurturing inherently to experience empathy with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't feel like we need to get so loud in order to be heard. That's so important. And, again, we see this as sort of like our admission ticket into somebody's heart is to first make sure we've fully been present with them before we share what we're going to share. And the beautiful thing is that once one feels deeply heard, their defenses go down. They soften, they become more receptive, and then they can receive, whatever the precious thing is that you want to share. They'll be able to receive it so much more readily if you lead with validation and empathy. So here are just a couple prompts for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. You make sense.
Yeah. So just saying that, even kind of habituating that.
Mhm.
And then I find when I say, okay, that makes sense. The moment I say that, even if I don't even know yet how it makes sense, I'm like, oh, that does make sense. And then I can see more clearly kind of what makes sense about it.
Yeah, or I imagine, right, it feels blank given how much you love, need, value, long for blank. Like that, and you want to use your own words. Like we tend not to. It we don't feel it as much when we feel like someone's on using a script. So we can start off using a script, to learn a practice, but then you want to use your own words in it. But yeah, just imagine it's like you're going through a very challenging time, and someone said, my beloved says, yeah, like I imagine, kind of feels just embarrassing given how much you value your integrity, and then you go in the office late and your boss, gives you a talking to, and like that must have been really hard, right? So it just like puts me at ease, right? When I can do that with my beloved.
Yeah, yeah. So this is where becoming versed in feelings words, it's like a vocabulary that you can easily learn. And the vocabulary of needs, of human needs. Those are two really wonderful things. Just post them up around your office or we have lots of clients that we have, of course, we have lots of worksheets that we give clients and give our coaches to use with clients. And so we definitely have feelings and needs words because it's such an important thing to develop. All right. Tip number 5, get curious. Rather than getting defensive, making assumptions, or always talking. Yeah, curiosity is one of the most important ingredients in conversation, really in life. And so again, if your partner says something, maybe it's about what color they want to paint the walls, and your response is to instantly shoot it down and let them know how that is not a good color at all. Instead, get curious, like, oh, tell me more. Why do you want to paint the walls metallic purple? Which I would be all about. So we want to get curious with them because we have this incredible opportunity to get to know something about them and to see how they make sense, and to give them an opportunity is to explore an idea or concept and to actually stay connected to you in the exploration of it.
We talked earlier how, people have a tendency to either kind of go into kind of, fight mode or flight mode, or, freeze, faint, fawn. And curiosity, we've found, is just a extremely powerful redirect for all those things. Like no matter kind of what your attachment response, your dysfunctional response is, that, if you just can stay curious, like the conversation keeps going in a positive direction.
For sure. And it creates so much understanding. So I think one of the reasons that communication feels so magical, when people have perhaps a session like with a, couples coach or counselor, is because they finally can understand each other. And they're not just reacting to the story that they made up about their partner or all of these assumptions. So if you're not hearing your partner, chances are you're just reacting to what you're telling yourself about what they're thinking and feeling. And so the more we get curious, the more we get to learn around the depths of what's really occurring for our partner, again, it like opens up so many solutions, so much connection, so much empathy naturally. It allows us to actually understand rather than assume. And also just so important if you are someone that does more of the talking in your relationships, just to start asking more questions. It's one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another, is to ask these open-ended questions and then to deeply hear them and witness them in it. So, emotional connection is really at the heart of a thriving relationship. Research backs this up. And the way that we stay emotionally connected is not just asking yes or no questions. It's not just asking questions about logistics. It's asking bigger questions about each other's lives and hearts and feelings and inner worlds. And so we invite you to just be intentional about getting curious with one another in all the different forms.
Mhm. Yes.
All right.
Get curious.
Get curious.
Get and stay curious.
Tip number 6.
Appreciate and scan for what's also going well. Acknowledge strengths and best intentions. Yeah, like we find that, it's imperative to sprinkle positives in a conversation just constantly. There's actually kind of a ratio of positives to negative interactions we want in any conversation. And, sprinkling kind of those appreciations and acknowledging the other person's strengths and best intentions during even a difficult conversation is incredibly helpful to make sure that we keep things on a positive note.
Yeah. We've all had the experience, right, of communicating with someone who we had such good intentions. We meant well. Maybe we didn't get it right, but to feel misunderstood and misrepresented, it does not make for easy communication. So it is another important part of like feeling like somebody's in it with it, to see us for who we really are. And if we feel like someone really sees us, we then don't have to play the role of like trying to get them to wake up, or we repeat ourselves. Again, we talk louder, we use harsher words, whatever your default is to be heard. If we feel like somebody already sees us in the way that we long to feel seen, then we can get to actually solving something rather than arguing about the argument itself. So important. We give up when we think we can't succeed. So we want to let people know all the things they're doing well, because usually in relationships, we might think that it's much more efficient. Is like, I'm just going to go right for what isn't working. So maybe it's around cleanliness of the house. And maybe your partner did so many other things. They took care of the kids that day. Maybe they even cleaned other things. They cooked food, and you zero in on, I asked you to pick up ... and you didn't pick it up. Oh, like that's so crushing. And so instead we want to always, and whatever we're communicating about, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for this. And thank you for this. And thank you for this. I know you're also doing this, and here's this other thing. So we're not saying that you overlook maybe areas that you want to give feedback for, but make sure that we're continually on the lookout for what our partner's already doing well, because the way that our brains work, we will just completely miss it. We are hardwired to have a negativity bias. Negative experiences have immediate impact in our brain, whereas positive ones, we need to actually recognize it as positive. We could have the most beautiful life and be miserable if we don't wake up to actually seeing the goodness in life. And it takes about 20 to 30 seconds for that to register. And so it is so good for your own mental health and emotional well-being and your own happiness to bring this tip in. And in relationships, the reason we stop doing kind, thoughtful, meaningful things so often is because we think it doesn't really matter. So we want to be always reinforcing all the things that we want to continue. And that ratio Brett mentioned is from Dr. John Gottman. And we want to, in everyday communication, we want a 20-to-1 ratio of saying 20 positive things to every one bit of, so-called like negative feedback. We want to just continually point out what's going well. And then in a conversation that's much more emotionally charged or an argument, we still want a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. So maybe time to balance that back out. And it's just brain training to be on the lookout for what's going well.
Tip number 7.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. Be forward facing and paint the inspiring picture of what you do want. What I dream of is that we communicate effortlessly, and that, we just give each other space to really hear each other deeply. Right? We want to get really good at getting clear on what we do want, because Christine mentioned that negativity bias, right? Our tendency, and this is like how almost all of our human brains are wired. Our tendency is to focus on the things that cause pain, right? The threats, the painful things. And so it's like, we can spend our whole life together, focused on talking about our problems. And that is not a path to successfully achieve our goals, right? That's a path to expand our problems by focusing on them. And so, yeah, we want to be kind of continuously cultivating that vision for what we do want. And we want to be verbalizing it and calling it into life in doing so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we're not suggesting, we think there's absolutely a time and place to dive into the past and to have conversations about what didn't work so we can really understand each other and the impact we have on one another, and going even deeper into our past, looking at past relationships and how they color and impact, our tender places inside of us and how we can really be a source of healing for one another. And we want to spend the majority of our life painting the inspiring picture, because then we get our partner enrolled in that. Otherwise, if we're just telling a partner what we don't want, so let's say it's around finances, and if you're just telling your partner like, that you just can't stand how they do something around finances, versus like, oh, what I dream of is us just being on the same page and getting to save together for these incredible vacations together. So like something that they might say like, oh gosh, well, I want the exact same thing as you. Okay, great. Let's find a new way to approach it together. Or maybe your partner, they show up late and they don't text you to let you know. So rather than just saying, oh, I've been waiting here and you always do this, and you were just so distracted, I can't believe you just don't even care about me. Like all these things, right? Someone's going to feel misrepresented, misunderstood. They're not going to feel seen for their good intentions. All of those things versus, next time, sweetheart, I would just love it if you could just send me a text. Like as soon as you know you're going to be late, if you can just shoot me a really quick text, it can be 2 words. That would just be so helpful and meaningful. So much lighter. And then they can be like, oh, sure, I'm happy to do that. Versus having this whole conversation. They're like, no, the reason I didn't text you is because of this. And then it just goes back and forth. This is not a never, but typically you can move through things so much more quickly. And then you just sync right back up. Like, oh, we want the same thing. Okay, next time we can do it differently. How wonderful. And there's just kind of assumed best intentions in that. So be forward facing and get each other inspired about the life that you're going to create together.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's a little example. So we came up with this acronym called BASE. And this is to help you in the moment. I was like, how do we create a solid base of how a conversation will go? So the research shows that the greatest predictor of how a conversation will go is actually how it begins, which is why we call this BASE. It's like creating this base. So this includes the things that we've talked about so far. So the B is best intentions. So we want to actually share with someone. We're going to share with you a little example here, but acknowledge their best intentions. It's really easy to jump to somebody's worst intentions. And chances are, especially if it's someone that you're choosing to be with and that you want to stay with, tucked in there somewhere is some benevolence. And we want to really point that out. We want to appreciate them, let them feel seen for all the things they're also doing well. That will position you so much more as allies rather than adversaries, that you can come up with a resolution so much more quickly. And they'll be so much more receptive to whatever you want to share. Point out their strengths. So everything is like a two-sided coin. So maybe you're focused on how someone is, so-called lazy, but on the reverse side of that, maybe they're easygoing and they trust and they prioritize play. Or maybe you're, focused on how someone is like overbearing or controlling. On the flip side of it, they're like really on it and they create a lot of order. So whatever you perceive as a weakness or shortcoming, promise you on the other side, there is like some golden treasure. And we want to always be looking for that and pointing those out. And then we want to offer them empathy, which we've covered. So acknowledging some of their feelings, some of their needs, just really validating them. So here's a little example of what this might sound like. There's like infinite examples, but here's one just to help you see it. All right. So I know you've had so much on your mind with work and are trying to juggle many things right now. So this is just an example, many things right now. And it's a lot. So that's like acknowledging their best intentions, right? They're just working hard. I'm so grateful for how hard you work for our family and that you still take the time to connect with us. So that's appreciation, strengths. When you get home, I imagine it can feel chaotic and that you're longing just to relax. And I totally get that. So it's empathy, not making anybody wrong. In the future, I just love some of your help with cleaning up and with the kids so we can then relax together and share meaningful moments once they're in bed. So that's painting this inspiring picture. Do you have any ideas for how we can do that? So it's curiosity and togetherness. It's inviting them into the conversation. You don't have to have a solution. Like, do you have any ideas? How can we do that? Like, nobody's wrong here. If this feels at all like daunting, laborious to like, oh my gosh, doing all these things, promise with all my heart, this will take a fraction of the time from all the recovery and repair. And yeah.
Truly, communicating this way takes no more effort than doing it in like a totally frustrated way or a totally hurt, kind of anxiety, provoked, blaming way, or like really, this is where, we are the creators of our life. And now, is what Christine just said, like, is that what you were taught in your family of origin? Like, like that makes me laugh because that totally, I mean, not even in the same universe. My family's beautiful, wonderful people. That is not how we talked at all. And that caused problems. And so really this is just about like shifting habits, right? Like whatever you're doing now that isn't working is just a habit. And you can like switch over to this type of habit. And we promise you this will work infinitely better.
Yeah, it really is just building a muscle. And it can be helpful sometimes, even if you start writing it out, like write your partner a message. If in that moment it feels like, oh, shoot, I didn't get it right. Like it really is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, just like little bits here and there until this becomes kind of your unconscious default is to communicate in this way. And Brett and I did not always communicate in this way with one another. And now it is just our default. And I'm so grateful. And it's really just because we've practiced it, we've habituated it. So you can absolutely get there. And one thing that I love so much about it, not only does it create so much more connection, ease, and togetherness and flow and joy and all of that, it really helps wake us up to these things we'd otherwise miss. Like the world becomes so much more beautiful, so much more abundant. We can actually see into the heart of another and see their goodness, see their strengths, see their good intentions, see all the things they're doing well, how they're here to love and support us and care. It is such a way more enjoyable way of relating just to all of life. All right. So we have just a few more quick tips for you. So tip number 8.
Be more committed to being close and happy than being right. And this is where, our kind of addiction to feeling the adrenaline rush of conflict can really, be our kind of worst enemy, where it's like, oh, like none of us wants to be like a drama king or queen, right? None of us like wants to experience drama, but why do we do it? And why do some of us do it a lot more than others? Because it creates this really intense cascade of emotions within us. And, we can habituate that experience as like, the feeling alive or feeling like, oh, this is what they need to do to prove to me that they care about me, or this is what I need to do to protect myself, right? And we're just completely, reading everything inaccurately, right?
For sure. Yeah. It's like relationship crack.
Yeah.
Blame and criticism and making wrong. We feel more significant. We feel more powerful, more alive, more confident. And it is nothing compared to what love and kindness and togetherness and connection. I mean, it is just no comparison. So it's a wonderful little check-in, like, okay, in this moment, do I want to be right? Or do I want to be close and happy? And just to make that commitment over and over, like the most important thing right now is actually just being connected to you. And when we're not so connected to our partner, we just feel like we don't have much to lose. And so it's easier to make it worse and worse. And then the more connected we feel, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt this connection. So it's easier. So we just invite you to like start practicing these things, get into a space of connection, and then it'll be something that you truly want to preserve in all your interactions.
Yeah. Or, if it's not like, oh, like it's, I need to be right here. It could be more of like, I need you to be wrong, and and this is where it's like, oh, either one of those, desires is going to come back to sabotage what I really want to experience in life. So, this is kind of having like a bigger picture, right? Instead of doing that instant gratification of like my ego, feeling powerful in this moment, I have this much greater kind of long-term picture of what is going to serve us both, serve our hearts, serve our relationship.
Yeah, yes, yes. All right. Tip number 9 is to be aware of your listening filters and to choose them wisely. So we all have listening filters. There's really, no way to be completely void of them. And whatever we're listening for, we are going to hear. And so here are just some examples. There's so many. These are common ones. Of course, listening for how you're right and they're wrong. We can also, though, be listening to how you're wrong and they're right. Listening for ways to defend yourself, what you're going to analyze. Well, they only do that because their mom did such and such. Listening for accuracy. Are you just scanning for whatever your partner's saying? You're just looking for what's accurate or inaccurate.
Well, we didn't do that 6 months ago. It was only 5.5 months ago, right? And then that, right?
We want the whole point.
Yeah, it's like that's
not
irrelevant, right?
We could also be listening for how to fix or how to control, how we're better than or how we're worse than. Either of these stand in the way of actually just being present to the heart of another. What you're going to say next. Are you so in your head thinking about what you're going to say next that you actually aren't present with what they're sharing? Or taking it personally, which is another way that we miss out on just being present to the pure expression of who they are. So these are all listening filters. These are great things to look at because, oh my gosh, it changes how we hear everything. And this is, one of the revelatory things when we're working with couples. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought you were saying this, but you were actually saying this. Like how often there's a mismatch, but we then react to what we think we heard. So instead, what we want to listen for is what we want to appreciate, what we can empathize with and listen to understand. That is so important because again, there's no right or wrong in relationships. It's beyond all of that. It's like, what's important to you? What are you feeling? What are you needing? What do you value? Who are you really? And how can I best love and support you right now? Listening filters, so important. And it's juicy areas of growth. And because it usually reflects a lot about the journey we've been on, kind of where we got these listening filters. So of course, all these things we can unpack so much more. But to starters, just to be aware of them and choose your listening filter wisely. All right, our last tip number 10.
Find a time and place where you can relax and be in your heart. Yeah, so you're really picking and choosing the moments, to set you up for success and having, your more important conversations with each other. So it's like, instead of, having that important conversation about, where our kid's going to go to school or, like how long we're going to spend, with the family, at a coming up holiday, instead of doing that at, 11 p.m. as we're like going, starting to, go to sleep, right? We're picking a time where it's like we, are both mentally on, and intellectually on where, we have spaciousness to really like have that conversation and not feel rushed, where we can really, have the time and the resources to practice like these tips we've been going over.
Yeah, if you're trying to have these conversations right before bed, or when one of you is like busy making dinner, you just walked in the door, we're in a different state. Like we're truly running different circuitry. Our nervous system is in a different response. And if you're already in a stress state, naturally it's going to create stressful stories and we're going to look for things that are more stressful. So we want to be in a relaxed position. So sitting side by side, maybe your feet are just touching or your hands are holding and you're relaxed in your bed or on the couch. Because when we're in our ego, we're going to see somebody else's ego. But when we drop into our heart, like that's where we can reach theirs. So we want to get into a place. And when we're in our hearts, we tend to speak a little more slowly, a little more softly. We can see them just radically differently. So setting yourself up for success is like maybe setting dates to have certain conversations and avoiding halt moments. So when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, tends to not go optimally. And so we don't want to just say no to our partner. We want to offer them an alternative. Like, I'd love to talk about this with you. Can we come back together tonight, make a cup of tea, and like, let's sit on the couch and really talk about this together, because that's so important. All right, so just a few reminders. You have done a fabulous job. So congratulations on all of this, being communication superstar. It's just that we can heal what feels heard. So listening is one of the most important things I think that we can develop in this lifetime, as in all of our relationships, to really be a source of healing for one another.
Yeah, our egos will see someone's ego, but our open heart can communicate to and reach theirs. Yeah, like one of the things I think we've said in many different words over this presentation is like, stay in your heart, right? It's like when you're talking heart to heart, like then it is ease filled. Like things, just flow.
For sure. Yeah. We all make sense. And it's up to us to see how one another makes sense, because it's in there. Again, if we can get out of our heads, get into our own heart and get into their heart and get curious enough and seek understanding.
We're not upset for the reason we think we are. And that's where we always want to be doing that wonder and look under and identifying those important, beautiful needs that are underneath the upset.
Yes, the very thing our relationship needs to grow is often the very thing that we need to evolve and grow. And I love this about relationships, because they are such brilliant mirrors, really here for our evolution and our healing and our growth and our awakening, if we accept the invitation and allow them to be.
Yeah. And on just the other side of conflict often lies our greatest opportunities for thriving like never before. Yeah, our challenges are, just growth waiting to happen. And so we want to seize those opportunities and do the growth.
And you are doing it. So we have gone over communication, which is just essential to having a thriving relationship. And just want to acknowledge there are 6 pillars that we found are really vital to having the greatest relationship imaginable. So personal responsibilities, that's doing our own inner healing and growth and looking at what does the relationship need from me to go to the next level.
And secure attachment, just making sure that we're creating safety, trust, stability, connection between us in a way that, that looks different for all of us, right? It's kind of really figuring out what secure attachment means for my beloved and making sure that I'm doing a good job of creating that for them. And vice versa.
Yeah. And repair, learning how to effectively repair, so we can talk about those things that happened, that were more painful, and actually learn and grow from them and do things differently. And that we can actually feel a sense of completion around it. So it's not just building up and creating resentment and creating these, raw spots in our relationship. Repair is so important.
Yeah. Communication, well, you got a lot of that today. Yeah. And a positive love account. So we want to make sure that we're always putting in like more deposits into our love account, having those positive interactions, those connecting, bonding interactions, and, and then having, some stressful interactions, but always in the right ratio. Yeah, always very minimal on those stressful ones, and by in that the positive kind of mass of our of those positive interactions, just helps those stressful conversations go well.
Yeah, it's really learning how to uniquely love this person in the way that they can receive the very best of all, and having this inspiring future that we're stepping into. And then physical intimacy. So for most of you, probably your relationship with your beloved is, this is what kind of sets you apart from other relationships if you're in a monogamous relationship. And so it's just so important. And a physical affection, it changes us physiologically, which then makes communication easier, empathy easier, curiosity easier, appreciation easier. Like, it just creates this level of ease. And whether this is sexual touch or non-sexual touch, and if sexual touch is something that your relationship is not abundant in right now, it can be really easy then for non-sexual touch to also fall away, which can do so much damage. Life can be so much easier when we're bringing that back together. And this is can be a tender area for some couples more than others. The number one reason people reach out for support around physical intimacy is a differing desire level and how much physical intimacy to engage in. So if that's something that you are navigating right now, know that you are not alone. There's so much healing, so much opportunity for connection and breakthroughs ahead. Talk about never receiving an education, most of us, around like, how do we keep passion alive and long-term love? How do we honor both of us when we have different desires? There is a way for all of that. And it really is such an important thing to nurture in your relationship in a way that really works for both of you. All right, so those are the 6 pillars. So we just want to share with you what we do here at the Center for Thriving Relationships really briefly, in case you aren't familiar with our various services, in case you would like some one-on-one support with knowing how to communicate in a different way, to have those conversations with exponential more ease. Maybe it's taken you, 300 times doing it on your own, or 3,000 times. You're like, you know what? Maybe we could just have like an hour with somebody else and have this great breakthrough around it and finally find the off-ramp and the way out. Or maybe, you are wanting to support others around it. Or maybe you're like, gosh, we've got communication, we're kind of working on that, but these other pillars could really use some support. Really, we are here for you with all our hearts.
Yeah, when we are going through those challenges, it's like we, just did so much work on ourselves. And, it was like often kind of difficult to find the resources, even, that would kind of lead us in the right direction. And so, when we really kind of figured, kind of our relationship out, then, we had this really clear idea of like, oh, what would have served us really well? And that's what we want to create, for the world, right? We want, people to have, couples to have this very kind of safe, nurturing space that they can come to and to get all the support that you need to achieve your relationship goals, whatever those are. And so it's just been such a profound honor to work with couples. And, it's like the most sacred part of our life. Like that people kind of, trust that, the Center for Thriving Relationships and us is just like, oh, like what an incredible privilege. So thank you. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much. So just to share with you some of the different things that we have available to you. We do a weekend retreat. It's called Thrive in Love. It's truly one of our favorite weekends of our life. It is so fun. It is so bonding. Like, couples enter and they're kind of far apart. Maybe they got into an argument on the way there, or whatever it might be. Some couples in a challenging place, some are on the brink of separation, some are doing well, and they just want to keep nurturing their love. By the end of just Sunday, so it like blows me away, they are so connected. The room is like glowing and radiating. There's so much love. We really walk you through the roadmap of what it takes to have a thriving relationship in this experiential way. You maintain complete confidentiality the entire time. You never need to share anything with anyone but each other. It's very unique in that way. But we also do demonstrations with couples that want to volunteer, so you can witness their breakthroughs and see yourself inside of them. There's always so much knowing laughter and so much empathy and compassion. It's so inspiring being in a group with other couples of all along the journey in different stages who are also committed to thriving. And we also fill it with fun and bonding and connection, because chances are you're overdue for some of that, as well as so many tools that we've developed over the years that just, they work, and we believe in with every bit of us. Yes. So that's the Thrive in Love retreat. You can use the QR code. We'll put links here below in case you want to check any of these things out. And then coaching and counseling is available in person in our offices in Bloomington, Indiana. Otherwise, anywhere in the world, we have an extraordinarily gifted and skilled team that we have personally had the great gift of training to work with couples. And they are so well versed in all things love and relating and communication and connection and sexuality. And so you can always reach out to our team and schedule a free 20-minute consultation around that. We also have online courses, so we'll put the links to those before. One that's just all about relationships in general, another around sexuality. And then also, if you are someone who relationships light you up and you want to do a deep dive immersion in your own life, you just want every relationship in your life to be better for the rest of your life, and or you feel this longing to support others. Maybe you see people struggling in their relationship and you know it doesn't have to be that hard, but you don't quite know how to help them. Maybe you're already a practitioner and people come to you around relationship stuff and you're like, I know how to help them individually, but I don't even know how to help them with their relationship. Maybe you're wanting a career change and to do something meaningful, and you love love stories. You love talking about relationships, whatever it might be. We are so lit up about our Thriving Relationship Coach certification. It is 6 months. It's 100% virtual. We have just the greatest students. They're all over the world, these huge-hearted people who are here just to create more love and connection. We just truly believe there's a pathway between every human heart, and it's just about finding the right flashlight to kind of find the way. And we've developed 50 plus scientifically backed tools that all of our coaches have full rights to use in their own practice. We really give you everything it takes to create miracles and breakthroughs in couples' lives in a really structured way that you can understand why and how it works, and exactly how to facilitate and have very concrete tools and methodologies in a way that just leaves you so fulfilled and so moved and touched again and again. And then we also offer free consultations. So if you're just curious, like, you have questions, or maybe it's like, oh, I know I kind of want a better relationship, I think, or I'm interested in maybe helping other couples, but I don't know, what does that even look like? What's possible for me? It is like such a friendly, casual conversation just to hear more about what's on your heart, answer your questions, share more, and see if there's something that might deeply serve you, so that, you're able to know that you really tended to what's most important to you in this lifetime.
Yeah, if you have any interest in any of the things that we just listed, or you just know you want support in some way around relationships and you don't even know what that would be, just don't hesitate to do this consultation, because we're all about relationships. And we have kind of amazing people kind of on the phones, and they would just be delighted to connect with you for a few minutes and to get to know you a little bit and to see how we might be able to support you.
Yes. So we're just going to share a few things people have said over the years. And this is truly because we know how it is. Like, our relationships are, again, like the most important part of our lives. It's such a vulnerable thing that is so important to us. And so the thought of like trusting somebody else with that, we realize like that's a big deal. And so we just want to share what's possible for you, and also just give you some assurance perhaps. So yeah.
So Illumina, one of our graduates in our coaching program, says, as a coach for 12 years now, I've never come across a training this packed with incredible gems of the highest caliber, useful information. This training is absolutely incredible and has exceeded any thought possible. I'm elated over all the new tools that I've learned and been using in my private life and sessions with my clients and sharing with so many. Thank you with all my heart for the tremendous support. I'm forever grateful. And thank you, Illumina. We're just, again, just feel like so privileged to, have these students in our program.
Yeah, they are such an inspiration. There's really just nothing we would rather do every day of our lives. Here's Lindsay, says 10 out of 10 recommend taking this program. Brett and Christine are a dream. They give you everything you need to feel fully supported and cared for, far beyond what I could have imagined. I can't imagine leaving another training with this much incredible knowledge, plus the tools to use in my own practice. Magic is happening. I'm excited to dive into the new possibilities this program has opened up for me. It's been an incredible experience all around. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Ray Carter says, exceeded every expectation on every level. Our relationship has benefited, as has my relationship with our adult children and grandchildren. Brett and Christine have hearts of pure gold, and the love they extend into the world is having its effect. And now we can all catch that beautiful energy and multiply it out even further. When I have coached my clients, they have all said they have had other coaches for a session or two, and mine was fantastic and streets ahead of the one that they quit. This program feels like there is not one of us being left behind, and your support of all of us is exceptional. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much, Ray. You're doing incredible work. Julia says, these tools have turned around decades of old patterns. We pick up so much misinformation from our upbringings, our education, and our culture that we really need this well-researched course to undo those untrue stories we tell ourselves that get in the way of us thriving in life. So beautiful, Julia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. Juanita says, this is by far the best program I have ever been a part of to improve my marriage. We've been through counseling, coaching, intensives, retreats, etc. We've done it all. This was exactly what we needed to get out of the hard place we've been stuck in for a long time. I loved learning from a male and female perspective together. I loved learning from a coach and a licensed therapist together. I love the positive energy. So many great things. I am so grateful for this experience.
Thank you, Juanita. So heartwarming. Shauna says, the content is unrivaled. It saved my own 30-year marriage after infidelity, and we're now thriving. Our relationship became something so different, so brilliant, so helpful, and so immediate. And those who knew us couldn't believe our transformation. Now we're the couple other couples want to emulate. The content and theories that make up the Center for Thriving Relationships are so complete and all-inclusive. It's applicable and highly effective for anyone who applies their principles to any relationship. Celebrating you, Shauna.
And Amanda says, Brett and Christine shared evidence-based therapies and modalities for people to understand that were not even covered in my graduate classes. Brett and Christine are really, really special instructors. They're both extremely conscientious and kind and warm and supportive. If you have any questions, they go above and beyond meeting people's needs. And they did a really stellar job of making sure that the information that they're presenting is based on science and compassion. I now feel more prepared than I did even leaving graduate school as a licensed mental health therapist.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Annie says, I am at a loss for words as to how to describe how totally incredible this experience was. I have been involved in counseling for years now, both as the clinician and the client, and their ability to transform clinical perspectives into practical information in a loving and hilarious manner is nothing short of brilliant. Jim and I were both blown away. Thanks so much, Annie and Jim.
Ethel says, it has accelerated decades of lessons I am meant to learn in this lifetime. This program has exceeded all of my expectations. It has profoundly impacted my life from the center of my heart, how I relate to self, how I relate to others, and my confidence in having something to offer as a coach. Brett and Christine are phenomenal instructors. They are such a powerful duo that we are all more blessed to have their gifts balance each other out so beautifully.
Thank you, Ethel. Joel Mary says, this is worth more than a college degree. I ran from this path for 20 years, knowing that this is what I was meant to do, but felt that I was not good enough and had no experience. But I also did not want to go back to college. I am so happy to have finally taken that leap of faith. The insane support I have gotten from the team has been a blessing, and I can now say I feel properly equipped, comfortable, and confident to dive into this world and help other couples. Yay! Oh, that's so wonderful,
Cheering you on,
Mary.
Joel,
Thank
Mary.
you so much.
Gabriel and Yulia say, Brett and Christine taught us the most powerful relationship gems of wisdom that saved our marriage, as well as strengthened our bond tremendously. Thanks to the incredible support, inspiration, and role modeling that we received from Christine and Brett, we are proud to say that we shifted from being on the verge of a divorce to the most fun, creative, connected, and empowered relationship of our dreams.
Sending you both so much love. Wendy says, the best send-off into the marriage adventure I have ever seen. Christine and Brett offer so much of themselves in the work they do. If you want your relationship to be all it can be, their Thrive Marriage Retreat is the best send-off I've ever seen. And that's true no matter how short or long you've been together, or whether you are in your 20s or your 70s. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Duffy says, we had the most life-changing and empowering experience at their Thrive in Love retreat. Highly recommend if you want to transform your life in the most positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Duffy. And here's just one more. You can see lots more that we have been overwhelmingly fortunate to receive on our website. But Kate and Nick say, amazing and relationship changing. Brett and Christine helped save and transform our marriage. This was supposed to be a place for us to reconnect. Instead, it was a place we discovered our true potential for a thriving relationship. Thank you so much. So just bowing our hearts to all these beautiful people and couples.
And I appreciate all those accolades, but it's really not about I mean, we didn't make those things happen. You know, we just create a safe space and give some support for people. You know, they created all those results.
They are the ones working the magic. Absolutely. And we are just so lucky for what we've gotten to learn over the years about relationships, and then to see it come to life with how other people are applying it. Truly are in awe again and again. So again, we share those things because we just want you to get a little window into what might be possible for you, no matter where you are in your relationship right now or where you might want to help others. So here is, we'll put the link again below. Here is it to schedule a free consultation if that would serve you, if you're just curious, if you want to be curious. We can get all your questions answered and just have a conversation. So it's centerthrive.com/consultation. There's the QR code. Again, we'll put the link below, and we're just here for you in every way, and so honored to be on this journey of loving and growing and connecting, truly for the greater good of all.
We just invite you to be part of the center in some way, whatever way would be most helpful to you.
Yes, yes, yes. Cheers to doing it side by side, heart by heart. All right. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to staying connected to you, and are wishing you every possible good thing. May you really create and commit to getting to experience the kind of love you've always wanted.
Really, much love, and hope to see you.
Yeah, so much love.